For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan, Capitol Bureau Chief and host of Under the Dome. You're listening to our latest episode for the week of July 15th, 2024. I'm joined today by now former State Senator Jim Perry, a Republican from Kinston. Senator Perry, thank you for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
On again. It's been, I guess, a year in ledge time. That feels like 5 years or 5 minutes, considering what they actually accomplished this last this last session. So the big surprise to a lot of people in December, you didn't file to run again. And then this past, or I guess 2 weeks ago, you resigned your seat. So let's back up to before the holidays when you decided that you were done with the Senate for now.
Yeah, so I was planning to run again. You know, that was my thought, that I'd do at least another term. And about 2 weeks before the filing period, we got a flurry of news, and I was fairly vague about it then. Some of it involves my daughter, and she was not, she didn't run for office. She's not a public figure, and she was not ready to share that information at the time. But my 22-year-old daughter had to have her left leg amputated in January of this year. And that was following 7 years of dealing with this and 5 major surgeries. She had tumors in her left shin that really weakened the bone, and over time, and again, multiple surgeries. At one point, she had replaced all the bone, from her knee down to her ankle on the inside of her leg was all metal. But the circulation was messed up over the years, and we just couldn't find a path forward. So we ran out of options. My mom has memory issues that we're dealing with, and trying to find the best path forward for her. And then a couple of days after finding that out, I actually got shot in a hunting accident. So it was a heck of a week with a lot going on. But my wife's family, her parents are in their 80s. They're in Northern Virginia. They got COVID during that same time frame. Her brother is really the primary caregiver. He got COVID, so she had to go up there. So, we're juggling her parents, my mom, my daughter, and it just hit me that we're at a season of life that, I want to be there. I need to be there, not in the political world. And then we did get some good news. My oldest daughter is in December. She got engaged, and she's actually getting married this upcoming weekend. So overall, it's a pretty busy year for us with a lot of changes. My youngest starts college in August at NC State. So we did have some bright spots to all the information coming at us.
How much, people say if someone says, oh, I'm not running because of my family, and sometimes it's true and sometimes it's not. So how much do you actually, I know you just speak for yourself, and, all lawmakers are different. How much do you actually talk about your political work with your family, and how much are they, what do they care about? Is it more like, well, you're in Raleigh for, this weeks or months, I didn't see you, or do they actually say, how's that bill going, that sort of thing?
Yeah.
What's it actually like? And your 3 daughters are all around just young adults.
Sure. They're 18, 22, and 24. They, like most people, I think they pay attention to some things that are interesting to them, or if they read something that catches their eye, they will ask about specific things that are going on, or, they'll ask if a bill's filed, they'll ask if I think it'll move, or what's going on. So I think the normal curiosities.
That's definitely an NC poll kid, though, if they ask if the bill is going to move.
Right. Yeah, we live in a bubble, right? And it's weird to us that the world doesn't pay attention to the budget.
Yeah.
You obsess over the budget.
Yes.
But so many other people have no idea if we ever pass a budget adjustment, or when we actually pass a budget, or that it's a biennium budget.
Our families do, whether they want to or not. My son is 16, and he knows all about the budget. He took AP Politics and Government this past year in 10th grade. Yeah. And I said, tell me something about the role of the lieutenant governor in North Carolina. And he said, the only vote in the case of a tie. And I was like, oh, yes, you got an A. Right there. He did get an A, actually.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Well, let me address the rumors that have gone around from Democrats or Republicans that it was political reasons why you didn't run, that it had something to do if you had crossed Senate Leader Berger. It's out there, so everybody listening, let's hear what the actual reality is.
Yeah, so I've heard that one too. I don't think that came from a Democrat. I think that probably came from a Republican. But I've heard those rumors over time since I've been up here in various forms, because I came on. I'm a little different, not coming from the political world, coming from the business world, and I started raising funds. And I've got my own thoughts and opinions on issues. But at no time have I ever gotten sideways with Senator Berger. Senator Berger's been very helpful for me while I've been up here, very supportive. Little known fact, most Monday nights, especially during the long session, we actually have dinner together. There's a group of us that would eat on many of those nights and spend time together. So nothing could be further from the truth.
Who makes dinner?
Well, we've cooked a couple of times, but we typically get some takeout delivered, or we have it picked up. Depends on how many people we have. When we're really lucky, Senator Lazzara will whip up some Italian food. Oh. That's a big treat.
Not the baked spaghetti from the cafeteria.
Yeah, he's not a big fan of baked spaghetti. We probably should edit that out.
Well, Sawyer made it her pick when she was on the podcast, so that's all right. Joking about him. So, what about leaving Lazzara and Senator, your other, your friends in the Senate, Senator Sawyer, Senator Johnson? I mean, you all are kind of your own group. Your offices are near each other, and now you're out. You cleaned out your office, I guess, already.
Yeah, it's strange. I remember walking into the chamber for what I felt like was probably going to be the last time as a seated senator, and you feel the full gamut of emotions. I'm thankful to my friends. We've learned a lot together up here. We've supported each other, tried to help each other with legislation and various issues, and I think you form lifetime bonds. Going through some of that together. It's different. It's going to be different, but it's special to be part of such a small body. There's so few of us. You really get to know people, and I have no regrets.
What was the total time that you served? Because you were appointed.
Yeah, I was appointed a couple of days into the 2019 session, so I didn't miss any votes, but I wasn't here for the opening ceremony. So I guess 5.5 years.
Oh, I wanted to ask you about what we talked about a year ago. You said you wanted to run because of a law impacting your business. So can you give us the...
Yeah, so I was never really involved in politics. I was probably more like the average person who, read a couple of things, but flip quickly to the sports section. But a bill was introduced. I was in the dental industry. I worked for a management company, and we helped open dental practices around the country. And a bill was introduced that would have basically put us out of business overnight. And that, it was very scary. Fear is a powerful motivator. So I had to learn to walk the halls and talk to lawmakers and learn how to frame the issues to try to fight that legislation.
But what would it actually have done? Like, what was the...
It was about the relationships between management companies and individual dentists, and it would not have allowed management companies to, as an example, own and lease dental equipment to a dentist. There was different aspects of the cash that you could provide to them for operating capital because there were bundled services. That was, I think, 2011 when that occurred. So that was my introduction and how I, came to learn about the political process.
What's your, so you work in healthcare. How would you describe what you do for a living?
So I'm retired now. I was a chief operating officer of a large company. We had just under 3,000 employees, locations in 40 states. We built that from a small family-owned business to a multi-billion-dollar enterprise over time. So it was a great experience for me. But I came up through the ranks. I went there to run recruitment and worked in recruitment and then operations, and, just continued to gain experience and responsibility over time.
Pretty young to be retired.
Yeah.
Business did pretty well then?
It did pretty well. I was an investor in the business, and one of the shareholders. That was something that the founders did for a group of us, and it was very impactful, and very thankful for that.
So tell me why you resigned now instead of coming back for that post-election session and the veto overrides, and if there's ever a budget adjustment deal.
Yeah, so we were finished with what I think would be substantive business of the session. I only anticipate a few override votes toward the end of the year, if they're able to get everyone back for that, maybe some conversation around a constitutional amendment. But looking at everything that we're currently going through, and thinking about who would come in after me, there seems to be a lot of reasons. Frankly, I'm a little frustrated with the scheduling, and how we did some good things in the short session, but I get frustrated with not being able to have a defined schedule or know when we're getting out when you have other obligations. I think all members do. And in weighing that and thinking about someone who would follow me and likely be the appointee, I think it would be good for him to have some experience. Think that it'll make a number of things easier for him to be able to come up and understand that. It gives me options on being able to do some lobbying if I want to next year. Mm-hmm. And I do want to do some pro bono work for an amputee organization. I would like to raise awareness about the difficulties that amputees face, and my daughter would like to join me in doing that. Going through that as a family, when you get the news that your child is going to lose their leg, it'll bring you to your knees. And then the first time you see your child without their leg, it will, it's surreal. It really is. But you start noticing things you didn't notice before when your family's affected by it. Like I'll drive by somewhere and see the number of handicapped parking places, or how far away they are, or someone who's not in compliance with something. Or, when you learn that if you tear your ACL, insurance companies, the general practice is try to get you back up to the highest standard of mobility you had before so you can walk or run. Well, with an amputee, that's not the case, right? You get one leg, and you can't walk and run on those legs. You have to have a separate attachment. But you're told, hey, well, if you can walk again, that's good enough for you. Well, that's not okay. I don't think the average person realizes that. So, again, it would be something we volunteer our time for, but things are worthy calls, and I do want to be able to do something like that. I think I'll end up back in the business world in some manner. We'll see. I've already talked to a couple of folks about board positions or helping out their companies. I don't know. I can't do nothing. I know that. I'll go crazy if I do nothing.
Do you want the appointment, or it's all the former lawmakers on? I remember when McKissick left, and then he was Utilities Commission, and are we gonna? Is that coming at some point, or some? Ballard's been appointed. Howard Hardister's been appointed. Something.
Yeah, I've had no specific conversations about anything like that. But if Senator Berger called me and wanted me to help with something, I'd have to seriously consider it, regardless of what it was.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more with Senator Jim Perry.
AI is incredible. It can teach you how to fry an egg and even write a poem, pirate style. Yarr! But it knows nothing about your work. Slackbot is different. It doesn't just know the facts. It knows your schedule. It can turn a brainstorm into a brief. And it doesn't need to be taught. Because Slackbot isn't just another AI, it's AI that knows your work as well as you do. Visit slack.com/meet Slackbot to learn more.
Get in the game with the college-branded Venmo debit card. Wreck your team with every tap and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash, a new rewards program from Venmo. No monthly fee, no minimum balance, just school pride and spending power. Get in the game and sign up for the Venmo debit card at venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm Capitol Bureau Chief Don Vaughan, here with Republican Jim Perry, who until a few weeks ago was a senator. So now that you're out of the building, out of office, and maybe return one day, but not anytime soon, it seems like, you're free. You can say whatever without worrying about the caucus mad at you. So tell me everything that's happened in every Republican caucus meeting for the past 5 years. Okay, just wanted to throw that out there. So what do you actually miss about the place, and what are you really glad that you're just done with?
So I think I know I will miss the people that I've formed some strong relationships with. I'll miss sitting in the members' dining room and just talking to everyone and catching up at lunch. We have a big table in there, and a big group of us are in there frequently. That's going to be different. Sitting in caucus, you learn a lot, and you catch up on a lot of what's going on that day while you're in caucus. I will miss those things. What will I not miss? So I will not miss I guess the lack of defined schedule, for the General Assembly. I'm not going to miss that. I'm not going to miss having a long, demanding day here and then having meetings that people want you to attend afterwards, and you feel like you feel bad because it feels like all you ever do is say no. But when you have over 200,000 constituents, 2,200 square miles to cover, 3 counties, it is difficult. If you think if 0.5% of the average constituents in a Senate district need just 15 minutes, that's 26 hours per week, just in those conversations, 0.5%. So when you throw on committee meetings, fundraising, ribbon cuttings, any other more involved meeting, it is not a part-time gig. You cannot do this job part-time and do it well.
When I worked at community papers and then I covered local government, those events when the state lawmaker is supposed to be there and then they're not there, people notice, and they're either can be unhappy about it if you don't show up. But schedule-wise, you're in the majority party. You guys get to control the schedule.
Well, there's another chamber, right? So
it's the House's fault.
No, I think that you have fewer senators. I think that can be easier to get people together. But anytime you're trying to meld the schedules of two separate organizations who have separate priorities, separate things that they believe they need to do, getting them to sync up is tough. It is. You're herding cats a lot of times, and it's no easy task. I think it can be better. But again, I think everyone thinks it's pretty difficult.
It's been pretty clear that Moore, even though he's leaving, he's picked his lieutenant, Rules Chair Destin Hall to be the next speaker. You and Bell, who was also interested at one point, maybe still is. Again, it's the caucus that votes it after the election. Not everything can be decided way in advance, but it seems like that's where things are going of who's coming back in the House Republican caucus, that it'll be Hall. What do you think about Hall as speaker, how he would be? Do you think Bell should be speaker?
So Destin and I are actually friends and have been long before he was Rules Chairman. I met him when I first got up here. And I think he'll do a great job, and I think they will be a great team. And I'm assuming it's going to be him because, as they whip votes in advance, he had enough support within the caucus to be Speaker. Destin is incredibly sharp. He's conscientious. He's a genuinely nice guy too. He's a good person, and I think he'll do a good job. It is no secret that Representative Bell and I are close. We enjoy spending time together. Our families know each other. I think things work out the way they're supposed to, and I think they'll both be happy in their new roles.
What do you think about that? There haven't been, since Harrington left, there haven't been Republican women in the top roles. I think percentage-wise, there's more Republican women in the Senate than in the House right now, but there were maybe the session before. Do you think, obviously Senator Sawyer well, or the other women in the caucus, now that you've left as whip, do you see like that being a door for any of them? Or just, it seems like the Senate is, Berger, we assume Berger's coming back and things will be more or less the same, but where do you see things in the caucus with future leaders?
I think those are decisions that the caucus will make. We've always shied away from identity politics and preferred to focus on qualifications for someone. And if they, any of them choose to run for any leadership position, I think they just make their argument to the caucus about why they are the best person for that. If the caucus agrees, then sure, they've got a shot. Mm-hmm. I actually think females might be the majority on the minority side in the Senate.
Yeah.
Right now, and we certainly, the females that were in the Senate were in prominent committee chair roles. It's pretty important and powerful committees in healthcare and transportation, education. So they certainly punch above their weight and help fundraise and help everything else within the caucus. So I think they got as good a shot as anybody else.
So name some Democrats with good ideas, good policy ideas that you would support.
Well, it's funny because we would hear amendments proposed sometimes on the floor, and it was the first time we had heard of them. And if you lay it on the table, it's not eligible to be included unless it's taken from the table. So there were a few times when I would actually go to Senator Choudhury and say, hey, man, that amendment was actually something that I think, we'd be willing to talk about. And when you have those, if you'll talk to us in advance, we actually probably try to incorporate some of it. Listen, everybody has some good ideas. Everybody has some bad ideas, me included. So I think anytime you have a bill that's multiple pages, there'll be things in it that you like and things that you don't. But all the good ideas don't rest with Republicans or Democrats.
All right. What are some bad Republican policy ideas?
Oh, well, I don't think we have enough time to go into those.
Top three
policy ideas. Let me think. I think we've got to look at incentives, and how we handle incentives for companies, how the diligence needs to be done on the front end. I think you learn every time you go through that stuff. I'd prefer to see no incentives, but until they're illegal at the federal level, I think knowing that your neighboring states are offering them, you're pretty much a dummy if you think you could compete without them, even though I hate them. So that's one thing that I definitely think we should tweak.
Is there a bill that was passed that you wish the caucus hadn't pushed?
I think there's more than one bill that I wish hadn't passed in one issue. Some of them get very difficult, like healthcare related issues. They become difficult because of state and federal law, and they impact rural areas a lot differently than they will in urban areas. So that stuff it's difficult, and I think we paint with a broad brush with a lot of those policy decisions.
So you're not going to say SP whatever is...
No, I'm not going to.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to ask you...
Good try. I appreciate you trying.
Well, let's stick on the trying to get stuff out of you track. What do you think of Lieutenant Governor Robinson? Do you think he's a good Republican nominee for governor?
I think that he has worked really hard to secure that nomination, and clearly the vast majority, overwhelming majority of the primary voters supported him. I think that he will do a good job. I think that he is surrounding himself with very capable people who understand there's a difference in campaigning and governing. And you can't always make that transition from, working on campaigns to helping govern, but I think he's taken steps to put folks in place who would be very helpful for him. I think he's learned a lot along the way, like anyone else who gets into politics, but yeah, I think he'll do a great job.
What do you think about, it's a wide variety of controversial things that he said. Like he's, targets LGBTQ people pretty regularly. There's just a variety of rhetoric on multiple topics.
I think it's disingenuous to say targets. If someone has a particular view about anybody, any movement, any organization or individuals, and that is their sincerely held belief, I don't think that's targeting. That's not hurting someone. That's just what they think about them. As you may feel about individual lawmakers, or I may feel about them. It doesn't mean I'm hurting them or targeting them. It's my belief. I think a lot of that stuff gets inflamed, taken out of context at times because it is politically expedient to do so.
Do you think
both sides do it? Let me be very clear. It's the nature of politics these days. And I should say all parties do it, not just both sides. We've got more than two now here in the state.
What about just the way that you talk about other people? You're someone who doesn't, if you're like in a floor debate, you're not going to criticize people, personally, any sort of that. And there's kind of, the Republican Party's gotten a lot of criticism for how the MAGA wing versus the more establishment Republicans, those that are, focused on policy. And as you say, both sides can disagree. What do you think about just kind of the style of politics, and then it's still under like the same tent? So how does that work out?
I think that, everyone takes a different approach to what they're comfortable with and how they communicate and what they say to different people. I also don't think that it's very reasonable. I'm sure if I were to record your dinner table conversations before you became a reporter, or even now, I'm sure you say some things at your dinner table that maybe it's not for public consumption that you wouldn't say otherwise. Or you probably say some things about the newsroom or the process that if you had to run the entire show, you might not say those things publicly. We get beat up for having thoughts and opinions these days. I prefer, I'm more of the old Reagan Republican, and I try not to speak ill of a fellow Republican. And I miss the old Reagan-Mondale debates where Mondale laughs at Reagan's jokes, and they're cordial to each other. I want to be civil in interaction even when we have disagreement, and I think I did that during my career. I formed relationships on both sides of the aisle.
Since we're talking about being cordial, and as we're recording this, Biden is still running for president against former President Donald Trump, who's now convicted of several felonies, is not a cordial person. I think that's like very, understating the facts there. What do you think of Trump, and are you thinking 4 years from now with maybe a cordial Republican running for office?
I don't know that. I don't want to be doom and gloom here, but we've gone so far down that road politically. I don't know how you get folks to take a U-turn, and come back and realize that your neighbor can be registered differently than you. They can have different thoughts and opinions, or you can be registered the same as me and have different thoughts and opinions. We're supposed to be able to disagree on things. When people talk about President Trump, I remind them that he is from up north. We we typically see different interactions
right,
from folks
from
who
New
are
York
there.
City.
That's right. So we see different interactions, and people communicate differently, and we may not be as comfortable with some of that in the South as they are up north. I know that I don't think automobiles will move up there unless, your hand goes up and you can signify something with one digit and you say some colorful words. I think that's required to drive up north. It's not required to drive here.
So who do you think would be good, like as a Republican in the future at the state or national level? Who do you like? Who do you want to see keep moving forward, running for things?
Well, I mean, I think that the candidate we had running for treasurer, Brad Briner, Harvard graduate, MBA, great experience. He was a Moorhead scholar at UNC, just a very smart guy, very good person. I'd like to see him win, but like to see his continued involvement. We've got a dark horse in the Senate, a senator who I think has a lot of promise in the future, and that's Senator Brad Overcash. And we always joke that Senator Overcash already has congressional hair anyway, so he needs to run for governor or Congress or something. But no, just a fantastic guy, great young family. He's got a lot of runway ahead of him. I look forward to following his career as he moves forward.
Okay. So are you going to run again? To be determined?
I'll say that I'm too old to say the word never, because you just no idea what the future holds, but I would call it highly unlikely.
Would you run for, some people that leave state office end up running for county or mayor or something like that,
I think I may run for the beach and relax at the beach some.
Oh, well, I'll ask you, what's your favorite North Carolina beach?
So we have a place at Atlantic Beach. Technically, it's the southernmost tip of the Outer Banks, and it's not that far from our home, so we love going down there.
Have you been all up and down the coast?
Oh, yeah. Throughout life, when I was a kid, we went to some different beaches, but mostly Atlantic Beach and Emerald Isle growing up because of proximity to where we're from.
One of our inside newsroom discussions is fighting over what is the best beach. Our producer on this episode, Gabby Hartlaub, says Topsail Beach. I'm partial to Nags Head. I realize that Northerners go there. I am from Northern Virginia and also, North Carolina and Georgia. So I spent a lot of time at Nags Head, but I have been to the other beaches. So that's my pitch for the other beaches. All right. We've gone over our usual time. Hope everyone's enjoyed this. It's worth it with Senator Perry on. Instead of headliner of the week, I'm going to ask you your headliner of the legislative session.
Yeah, so that's a tough one. I think as the headliner for me, it'd just be the lack of movement, of any legislation during the normal part of the session until those final couple of days. I hope we find a way to do that better in the future.
My headliner will be a similar gripe. The budget derailment, which is, you mentioned I love the budget, and it's because it's more than just the budget. I'm not a big, actual spread. I hate spreadsheets.
I think honestly. I said you're obsessed with the budget.
It's all of the drama. I was spoiled by the 2019 budget battle and the letters that were sent back and forth between the buildings and all of that. But also, come on, you could also just, get things done. And they did, the raises are now, for the teachers. I don't know why that has to be separate, but that's, kicked in. And the state employees, y'all got your 3% starting this month. So check your paycheck and ask your manager if that hasn't kicked in. But maybe there'll be more raises if the House and Senate come with some deal on whatever happens later this year. But that's not your problem anymore. So you don't have to worry about it. All right. I'd like to thank my guest, former Senator Jim Perry, for the News and Observer. I'm Dawn Vaughan. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Under the Dome and NC Insider, and sign up for our weekly political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.